Good afternoon. Today is Wednesday, May 27th, and we are at that happy moment where we are looking forward to this weekend, Pentecost weekend, May 30th and 31st, when we have been given permission to get together again for weekend masses. I would remind everybody that nobody is obliged to return to Mass this weekend. You are welcome to stay home. I want to point out, to my embarrassment, a mistake I made on the flyer that I hope everybody has received in the mail by now. Because up in the corner, I wrote that people do not have the obligation to attend Mass until July 4th and 5th. I have that incorrect. It's till after July 4th and 5th. And that date, in turn, might change at some point. But just so you know, it's going to be the middle of July before the Archbishop expects people to return to Mass. So please do not feel rushed. I would also remind everybody that people who are 60 years of age or older or who have health conditions, the Archbishop asks that you would seriously consider staying home at least for a few more weeks to let everybody kind of get used to doing this again and to be absolutely as safe as we can about your health. We're going to do this afternoon a brief walkthrough, a look in what St. Matthew is currently set up as and how it's different than it usually is in order to accommodate the restrictions that we have as we go back to Mass, things about seating and how close we are to each other, how the liturgy is going to be different. I thought a little overview with a chance to actually look at things as they are would be helpful, so that's what we're going to do. So as you come to the church and enter the space through the gathering space, you're going to see chairs set up in a fashion like this. These chairs are intended to be for people, for one thing, if we have an overflow crowd, people could be seated here. But also, if there are people who just are not quite ready to come back into the church with more people there and would just do a little bit better with a little extra space or closer to a door, you are also welcome to sit out here. Now, a reminder that you will only be able to hear Mass out here. There's a speaker in the ceiling, so you'll hear what we're doing. But you will not be able to see Mass from here because we're not set up for that. So just so you know, it's not quite as good as being in the room itself. Also, the chairs are where they are at this moment just as kind of a model. If you come here and you have a group that requires a different configuration of chairs, for example, if you have a family of 4 and there's only a cluster of 3 chairs where you'd like to sit, you are free to take a chair from the rack or from somewhere else and make it a group of 4 so that your family can sit there. I would only ask that if you do move the chairs, that you make sure that there's an adequate distance between your group of chairs and other ones. In other words, that we maintain that social distancing even though we've moved the chairs into a different configuration. Well, we're here outside the cloakroom, and we're not exactly set up the way that we're going to be on the weekend because we're just not quite exactly sure what that's going to look like. But I would suspect that when you come on the weekend for Mass, you will find in this general area a table with orders of worship on them. We're not supposed to use paper more than once, so what our plan is to have an order of worship that you can use for Mass, and then after Mass you throw away or you leave for us and we throw away, and then we'll bring out a fresh group of orders of worship after Mass for the second Mass. So, somewhere in this area, that's what you're going to find. Somewhere in this area, I'm not exactly sure where, we are going to have supplies such as masks and hand sanitizer that you can use if you need a mask or if you'd like to sanitize your hands on the way in. Again, somewhere over here on your way, you will find these supplies. On your way into church, you're going to notice some signs like this one that say, if possible, on your way in, please put your envelopes or donations in the baskets just inside the church. The thought is this: we're not allowed to take a collection during Mass. We're not going to pass a basket from person to person. That would not be a wise thing under these circumstances. But if you could drop off your donation when you go into the church, and the baskets will be right inside the doors on your left or right, depending on what doors you come in, what that would allow us to do is before Mass, the ushers will go and they will essentially gather the collection before Mass begins. They'll be able to put it in a bag, they'll be able to put it in the safe, and we will not have to worry about it anymore. Now, if you forget to put your donation on the way in, it's no big deal. You can find an usher, you can find me, you can find someone else to give your envelope to after Mass. It's perfectly fine. But if you do remember, and you could put it in the basket, that would allow the ushers to take care of most of it before Mass begins. When you come into church, you will notice that because of the restrictions that we have, we can only have people sitting in every other pew. And the way that we have designated this is that we've put a cone in the middle of these long pews and put some essentially it's tape from one end to the other. So if you see tape and you see a cone in a pew, that means that is a pew you should not be sitting in. That's one of the pews that we are keeping empty. There are also some additional chairs that have been put into the church in 2s and 3s. If there's a chair available and you see it and you want to sit there, that's also fine. Now, we all know that Catholics can be a little bit strange. And in the church space, Catholics have a custom, or many Catholics do. And that is to come in with their family or another individual or just themselves, and to get here early so that they can sit at the end of the pew. Now, most of the time, that doesn't really make any difference, and I'm just kind of kidding about what that means or why it would be significant. But under the circumstances that we are in, it is very, very likely that we are going to need every available seat so that people can sit there. And if people come in and they're the first person in the pew and they sit on the end, then when someone needs to sit in that pew because we need the seat, they are going to have to crawl over you and breathe your air, and you're going to have to breathe their air because they're going to have to come right past you to get into the middle, which is going to defeat the whole idea of spacing. So I'm going to ask everybody to do me a really, really big favor, and that is, if you are the first person to arrive at a pew, please move to the center. That way, other people who come into the pew can sit on the end or come over or whatever they have to do, but it will allow us to get the maximum number of people into the seats with the minimum amount of people crawling over each other and getting closer to each other than they should. So again, if you could please consider, when you come to Mass, moving to the center of the pews. At this time, I'd like to show you how it is that I'm going to be distributing communion on the weekend. The Archbishop has said that he wants only priests or deacons to distribute communion. So what that will mean is that by section, I will come down to a group of pews like this one, and I am standing in one of those pews that has the tape and the cone in it, which is to say, this is the pew that no one will be sitting in. And what I will do is I will come down this row, and I will distribute communion to each individual who wants to receive communion as I'm moving this direction. And when I get all the way to the end, I'll go around the corner, skip 2 pews to the next empty pew, come down and distribute communion this way. The Archbishop is requiring that everybody who wants to receive communion must receive on the hand, not receiving on the tongue, because of issues that I think are relatively straightforward. Now, this is one of the things that's really very difficult that I just have to ask your forbearance with. The Archbishop has said that he does not want anybody taking communion to the sick or shut-ins, except people, probably clergy, who are visiting the dying and are taking communion to people who are actively dying. Which means there will not be any of the pyxes out in the back like they usually are with the Gospels in the envelope. I would ask the favor that you would not ask me to give you communion to take home or present a pyx for me to put a host in, because I'm going to have to tell you no. I won't have time to get into a very long discussion because I'm going to have a lot of people to give communion to. But I will need to tell you I cannot give you communion to take home because the bishop has forbidden it. I'm sorry for that. It's what he's decided, and it's what we have to go along with. So that will be one of the aspects that we'll just have to grin and just get through on the weekend. To conclude this little tour, I just have a few more things to mention before I hope that I see many of you on the weekend. I have not yet been able to figure out how it is that I can create a confession schedule. Usually at St. Matthew, confessions are from 3 to 3:30 on Saturdays before the 4 o'clock Mass. The Archbishop has asked us not to use confessionals because it's an enclosed space and that's not a good situation. But I haven't figured out, given all the other things that we're trying to do and how chaotic the weekend is likely to be, to figure out what predictable time I can offer confessions. So I would ask that if you'd like to go, please call the parish office and we can arrange an appointment. I'm pretty flexible. I can make a lot of different times. It's just one of those situations where I cannot tell you in advance when I'm going to be available because the days are all kind of chaotic. So we're not going to be able to have regular confessions at this time, but they are certainly available. Please give me a call. Also, I want everyone to kind of realize as we come back that the liturgy that we are doing in these circumstances is really not what liturgy is supposed to look like. We are not doing the liturgy as best as it can be done. What we are doing is having liturgy the best we can do under these particular circumstances. So there might be things that we do or that I do that are a little bit different from normal, because in the back of my mind, I really want all of you to realize this is not normal. This is not what we usually do. They're just some things we can't do. So if they're varied a little bit, or I come in a different way, or I go out a different way, or something else happens, and they're going to be differences anyway. The sign of peace has to be touch-free. There isn't going to be a collection. There can't be anybody bringing up the gifts. This is going to be a liturgy that doesn't look like the Mass that we're all used to. I mean, it will look like Mass, but it's going to be a little bit different. We are doing the liturgy as simply as possible, at least to begin, probably for the first couple weeks. We're going to have Chris as our musician, we will have a lector, and we will have a priest. We will not have the deacons, again, in the interest of well, I'll get into that in a second. No deacons, no server, at least at the beginning. Because part of the challenge is, you haven't probably been to Mass in the last 10 weeks. I have had only private Masses in the last 10 weeks. So I might be a little bit rusty at the whole public Mass thing in the first place. But I can tell you for sure that I'm going to have to use a lot of concentration to have a public Mass where so many things are different. Because I've never had Mass this way, where I'm doing certain things and ministers aren't here. We're just going to have to kind of wing it, do the best we can. We're celebrating with the whole church. We're celebrating the Eucharist. We got a lot to be really happy about. But please don't get used to this. Please don't think this is the way it goes. And I can picture this nightmare scenario that sometime let's say that Mass under these circumstances goes fairly quickly. Well, when we get back to normal and things are like they should be, I would be really disappointed if someone came up to me and said, I really like that Mass got done much more quickly when we were under the coronavirus thing. That was really nice. Because I'm afraid if you tell me that, you might have to wear a mask for the rest of your life. So, please recognize we're going to have Mass the best we can. It's going to be joyful. It's going to be great to see you here. It's going to be great to be together. But man, it's going to be a whole heck of a lot better when we can go back to praying like we're used to. And let's all stay safe and healthy until that day. As you might imagine, I forgot to say something that I intended to say when I was back in the church. I'm standing here in the Good Shepherd room where a number of videos have been filmed over the last couple of weeks. It's been an enjoyable experience to do, and you might recognize the background here. But I need to give a shout out to Noah Dawn, who has filmed all the individual episodes, and they have been something to do, let me tell you. They didn't all have costume changes, and they didn't all have real elaborate editing. But I was making it up as I went along, and I was taping things to his camera, and I was doing this and that. And every time he played along with it, he kept coming back, he kept doing a great job, and we kept making videos. Well, Noah has to go to Mississippi. He's got school. I don't know what that's about, but he's got to get ready to go to school. And he's moving on Friday, and today is Wednesday. So I want everyone to know that these videos would not have been done without Noah Dawn doing the hard work of making this look like something and really making me look pretty darn good. So thanks to Noah for all his hard work, and we look forward to having him back with us as well.